welcome to the Daily Objective. This is our first live episode of the daily show of the Ayn Rand Center UK. And usually we do these long meetups with the long discussions. We're going to keep doing these, but the purpose of the show is slightly different. It's going to be this fast-paced, free-flowing discussions. And sometimes we're going to have guests. Sometimes it's going to be more like two co-hosts having a discussion. And this is going to be on various topics, current affairs, sometimes philosophy, culture, who knows? Maybe we do movies, maybe we do all sorts of stuff. So today with us, we have Gloria Alvarez. Gloria is a political commentator and an author. And welcome to the show, Gloria.
Thank you so much, Nikos. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you since the OAC finished our first year. So it's good to see that you're alive and well.
I'm alive and well. Thank you very much. So today the topic is obviously the situation in the United States. And you have lived in the States, you have experience in countries where they have a political crisis and political upheaval. I have myself as well, being Greek. So the first issue is, did you see something these last 7 days? Obviously, we had this horrendous killing of this man by the police officer, which was obviously shocking. But then we also had the riots. Then we had protests, counter-protests. We had beatings. So did you see something that particularly surprised you? Or do you think it was more of the same? It was more like a continuation of the culture wars by other means?
I think because we are in a world crisis with a quarantine, and 2 weeks before it was all about stay home, don't go out. The most surprising thing of watching these riots is like, did coronavirus stop? If you go and protest, then you don't get infected. Like the shift of the media in what is important and what isn't, it was absolutely surprising for me. But as riots and protests itself, let me tell you, Nikos, I think I have to be one of the women in my country that has attended more protests in her life. So I have a lot of experience. I've been protesting since I was 19 years old. And what I find about protests is that if you only protest and you make a big mess, but you don't have a really organized plan of action, then the protest is useless. And what I find in protests is that for every 100 people that go and protest, for whatever reason, 99 of them have no idea how to solve the issue. So whenever I protested in Guatemala, or when I have attended protests in Brazil, in Argentina, in Chile, in Spain, in Mexico, I try always to be the one that comes up with a solution. I go to the protest with some public policy that would change the situation. Let me put you an example. In Guatemala, 4 years ago, there was a huge, a really sad a thing that happened with 43 orphan girls that were burned inside of a state-owned orphanage. And apparently, some people locked them up and let them burn. There was a fire and they all died. So it was funny because a Catholic nun called me and the owner of some discotheques called me. So it was like three women, a nun, the owner of a discotheque, and myself sitting down after this horrible tragedy thinking, how the hell we come up with a solution? So when we go and protest in Congress, we have something to give. And when we started, understanding the laws of Guatemala, we found out that the reason why the orphanages are so crowded is because the laws of adoption have been restricted in Guatemala. So because it is harder and harder to adopt kids who need a family, then you have all these state-owned orphanages that they not only put orphan kids, they also put young criminals together. So when we started doing whole restructure of the law. We went to the Congress, and there's a video about this protest. We went all dressed in black with black balloons, each balloon symbolizing the life of one girl. So I do agree that protests have to be loud, okay? And you have to make a mess. But that doesn't mean that you have to violate private property. For example, I also in Guatemala once attended another protest with wearing, bug masks, like when you go and you're gonna kill bugs. So we were wearing those masks, and we had like trash cans saying, we need to clean the Congress from all the rats and all the cockroaches. So we did these piñatas, like these big piñatas of rats and cockroaches. Why? Because the media in Guatemala is quite leftist. So if you go as a libertarian or with objectivist views as myself, presenting a public policy that is not about making the state bigger, but actually shrinking it, they are not going to cover that unless you present yourself with masks, with cockroaches, with rats, with piñatas. Like, you can make a big fuss, and then when the cameras are on you, then you have to have something concrete to present. So what I see in the United States is all this mess, but what is the solution? I mean, what is the solution? Killing all the white people? I don't understand what is it that they want to get to. Yes, justice. Okay, but justice means that if you kill, you get into a trial, you're found guilty, you go to jail. Justice means that if you rob, you are found guilty, you go to jail. Justice, which is also that in the United States has been violated for a while, means that if you go on bankruptcy, you go on bankruptcy. There's no such thing as a bailout. There's no such thing as grabbing other people's money that are innocent from your bankruptcy to bail you out. So when we're talking about justice, what is it that we're talking about?
And it's very interesting that what you said about COVID, because I see a continuity in a way with the riots and the COVID, because both look to me like disasters waiting to happen. So we lived in a culture of fear, in a culture of risk aversion, where everyone is basically expected the state to give us guidance. So what happens in the COVID crisis? At least in the UK, we were actually begging the state to put us on lockdown. And what is happening now with the riots? So you have so many people who view themselves in the United States, and they have the media telling them, first of all, you're not individuals, you're members of group. You are either women or black or white, and you have one of these horrible tragedies, and instead of trying and think, how can we fix this? Why is it, for example, that police officers consistently target the black communities? And a solution would be, for example, let's discuss the drug wars. But you never see this. You always see the same and the same and the same narrative. And I wonder, do the media have an agenda in terms of, not like a conspiracy, but it's easier to throw gasoline to the fire. It's easier to play these games, to say, for example, well, it's Trump. Actually, this time it wasn't Trump. Trump has zero to do with the police. It's not even the case that you had, let's say, a conservative state, and that's why it happened there. So I don't see any focus on what you said, the real solution. So how can we make the case that now is the time to talk about, for example, ending the drug war? Now is the time to give more freedom to people in education. Because what are the two main institutions that harm the black community? The protesters are telling us, oh, it's a white supremacy or the United States or capitalism. No, actually are institutions that are run from the state, like the education, and it's this horrendous drug policy. So with all this noise and all this that is happening, how can we make this case that, look, we have to focus on these issues because that's where the answers are. You're not going to score points against Trump or you're not going to own the libs, but you're going to go to the root of the problem. How do we make this case?
Well, I think that we have to establish bridges with people that maybe don't think exactly like us. For example, next week I'm going to have an Instagram live with Miriam Issa. She is a Cuban Lebanese American. She actually comes from Cuban refugees who are Republican hardcore, because you know that all the Cubans that escaped Castro, it doesn't matter if it was whatever Republican president, they blindly support him. Why? Because Kennedy betrayed them in Bahia de Cochinos. So it's like, Democrats, no way. Because she comes from this Republican conservative household, she went to LA and she became a Democrat until Donald Trump won. And she talks about this in a YouTube video that she made. When Donald Trump won, she was working for E! Entertainment, and the order was, you're not going to talk about anything except how Hillary was dressed and how Trump was dressed. Nothing else. And she said, I'm not going to be part of this. Precisely for what you say, Nikos. Sometimes the media doesn't care about the truth. They don't care about doing good journalism. They just care about profits in the stance of, oh, this is what is on top right now, then let's put more fire on it. Which is also very funny with a meme. Maybe I can find it. And it's a meme about the companies trying to figure out if they're going to go with a LGTB flag with the Black Lives Matter flag or the stay home flag, because it's like everything was mixed in the same week. How can they profit from whatever is happening? So Miriam got very disappointed with the Democrats as well. And that's when she started finding the libertarian ideas. And she came to my videos and she was like, all right, this is an interesting alternative. Is, you know, like a middle ground in between the Republicans and the Democrats. And she started, you know, doing more of a research. Now that the protests started in the US, I contacted her. We're really good friends. And she has been every day in the protests. She's even justifying the destruction of her neighborhood. But instead of condemning her, I wanna listen to her. And when I listen to her, I'm gonna be like, okay, what do you think about, now that you are there on the ground with these people, telling them about legalizing drugs, or telling them about the fact that because education is state-owned, and not only state-owned, because the fact that private universities have been in this horrible corrupted scheme where the loans, the student loans have gotten so high, and it's like a never-ending cycle. Then also the private universities of the United States are collectivists. They are socialists. They're talking about this, you know, safe spaces and this political correct agenda, when universities are supposed to be spaces where you talk about everything. So me approaching someone like Miriam, where maybe we are not 100% agreeing on everything, but that I can sit down and say, okay, you are there. What are you seeing? What do you think about these ideas? I think is a beautiful example. The fact that you and I can discuss this, you being Greek and me being Guatemalan, because that's the other thing. You see people saying Black Lives Matter, but when I go there and I say, what about Guatemalan lives? What about Salvadorian lives, Hondurans lives, Venezuelan lives? Then the Black people just say, I don't know shit about Latin America. And it's like, oh, aren't you for individual rights? Shouldn't it then be that it doesn't matter where are we born? We are all, in, you know, like subjects of rights.
But we've noticed also something very interesting, which is related with what you said in the last week. So in the last years, there has been this saying. So for example, if you're not with us, you're against us. And we've seen, for example, Twitter mobs, so-called Twitter mobs. And in the last days, we've seen the very weird spectacle of people who are millionaires, you know, sports stars. And because they said something which has perceived as offensive, like simple things like, you know, you should respect the flag or whatever. Now, we can discuss whether this is a good idea, but the backlash in this, and then the fact that they had to give these apologies, which I find it so depressing. Like, yes. How can you have self-esteem? And it's one thing if you have done something wrong and you truly believe that there's something wrong. But quite often, I think there is nothing wrong there. These people just feel that they have to do this. So my worry is that what happens in this crisis is that the tendencies that are already out there, for example, this completely lack of space for nuanced comments, like this is the script that you have to go through, and if you don't go through the script, you have to be sane. There's something really totalitarian in it. Not totalitarian in the political sense, because thank God these people don't have political power yet. But when you see people being, for example, when you see they go to their employer and say, you should fire that person because they said this. And quite often what people do, the way they react is, they say, look, the other side has organized. They've become tribal. So what we need to do is we need to become tribal as well. And I think that's the biggest danger here. That instead of having what you said, one side, which says we need to see people as individuals, people are telling me, Nikos, you, for example, criticize feminism. Therefore, I'm going to be an anti-feminist. Or the other day, I wrote an article against the alt-right, and I had a lot of right-wing people telling me, Nikos, the other side is racialist. Therefore, we're going to become white nationalists. So how do you reply to these people? How do we avoid tribalism by not having another tribalism?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the attacks on the internet. Also, talking by experience, I must be one of the few women alive being more attacked by the left wing and by the right wing in all of Latin America, and not even Latin America, I would say Ibero-America, which includes also Brazil and Spain. And there's no feminist Marxist movement defending me every time that I get the most horrible insults from one side or the other. The only way that you can put up with all that shit that the internet throws, because that's the thing. I mean, I have brilliant friends, Nikos. They are way more brilliant than I, explaining free market economics or explaining objectivist philosophy. But when they are, what they cannot stand is the backlash of people attacking them. And we're talking about people that are sure of what they are saying, that they believe in what they are saying, which is a different case from like singers or actors who, for fame, they get a cause. For example, Leonardo DiCaprio. I think that if Leonardo DiCaprio would be genuinely, truly concerned for the environment, he would be sitting down with scientists, with neuroscientists, with businessmen, thinking on how to do market solutions for pollution, not just putting extinct animals in his Instagram, but going to the root. Again, what I was saying is not about protest. It's also about proposal. What are you proposing? How are we going to fix this problem? So the big issue here is that if you're not sure of what you're saying, because it's part of fame, of an advertisement campaign, and you say something that the people don't like, and that's the problem with democracy, it's all about having happy the majority. If people don't like it and you get a backlash, then you're gonna have people saying, oh no, you know what, I'm sorry, that's not what I intended. When you are sure of what you're saying, you don't care about the backlash. And trust me, like I could give courses on how to, live with all the shit that people throw at you. But then the other part of your question is not engaging in this two sides. In Spanish, we call it falacia, like the fallacy of the two choices. There's almost never only two choices in life. There's always more than 3, 4, or 5 choices. And whenever people want to put you either here or here, it's like, no, there's another alternative. So what I personally do is I engage in those debates. For instance, we have this marvelous book that I hope one day is published in English. It's by Maria Blanco. She's a libertarian professor from Spain, and she did this amazing book called Aphrodite on Bail, a defense of the liberal feminism or the libertarian feminism. And she explains how feminism in the beginnings was completely coherent with the ideas of liberty, because women were not asking for privileges. Women were asking for equality under the law. So whenever someone asks me, Gloria, are you a feminist? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a feminist, but I'm most of all, I'm an individualist. I don't care what your genitals are. I don't care what your nationality is. You are entitled to 3 rights. But as a woman, yes, I want to legalize abortion, but that doesn't mean that other people should pay for your abortion. And that's where they are like, no, but how can you be a feminist, but you are for abortion, but you don't want people to pay? And it's like, yes, there is a third alternative where you can be in favor of rights without being a socialist. And we need to have those discussions, because if the bright minds that have it clear, and you know this, Nikos, because we have been in the OAC studying objectivism. The beautiful thing about objectivism is that it confronts you with your rationality. So you either have 2 choices. You are honest with what reality is showing you, and you abandon the dogmas that you were, raised with or that were indoctrinated in you, or you just go through life as a hypocrite, But when you accept reality, then you don't compare the utopia with the reality. And I have a Chilean friend that explains this beautifully. He says, the collectivists, it doesn't matter if it's right wing or left wing, they always compare reality with utopia. They always say, yes, this is reality, but it could be so beautiful. And it's like, listen, if I would compare my romantic relationship with a Disney movie, Snow White or Cinderella or whatever, my romantic relationship is shit, because it involves 2 individuals that are not perfect, and it's not a Disney movie. So you never have to compare reality with something utopical that doesn't exist, but on that possibility of reality, what can be better? Right. And that's what I ask these people. Okay, what is the alternative? Yes, you are rioting, but what is the alternative?
And since we mentioned protest, by all means, I think people should raise their voice very loudly to confront injustice. But for the end, I want to say, the most radical thing you can do today is see yourself and others first and foremost as individuals, and judge them using your mind and your reason. Don't judge them based on what group they are, what race, what is their genitalia, or what political party they belong to. That's the most radical thing to do. That's going to be the real revolution. But one thing which is objective is time. So we've run out of time. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gloria. You're going to be co-hosting many future events. So I'm gonna give you the last words in a second, but just let me say to people, if you're enjoying this, make sure you go to the Facebook page of Ayn Rand Center UK, and you can follow the work of the center. You can become members. You can help Razin in the great work he's doing. So Gloria, in 20 seconds, what's the last thing that you want people to remember from today?
Get your DNA test. Go and test your genetic map. When we all find out that we are a genetic blender of thousands and thousands of generations colliding with each other, all this racism and classism and nationalism is gonna go to where it belongs, in the trash, in a mentality that is completely irrational.
Thank you very much. So thank you for joining us today. We're gonna be with you again Monday, same time. Bye, Gloria. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Nikos. So good to see you.
Bye-bye.